So the Calais jungle that's referenced in the book was more than just a camp, it was a symbol. And at its peak, which was 2015 to 2016, it had over 10,000 migrants near the French port city of Calais. And these individuals were fleeing war, poverty, and persecution. Their collective goal was entry into the United Kingdom. So the story reveals the deeply intertwined humanitarian, political, and social threads of modern migration. And as we explore what happened to the jungle, we're also tracing the failures and potential of migration policy. So, to understand the jungle, we must go back to 1999 when the Sangat Migrant Center was opened, and by 2002 it was closed due to overcrowding and UK diplomatic pressure. So, migrants responded not by disappearing, but by adapting, and they were settling in forests and abandoned areas nearby. So even as French authorities bulldozed early camps in 2009, people returned again and again, and the jungle we came to know was not born in a moment. It sort of emerged out of a long-term structural neglect and repeated cycles of displacement. In 2014, the jungle began again, I guess, as a modest settlement of about 1,300 people. And by 2015, the civil war in Syria and the violence in Eritrea fueled a massive expansion. So by 2016, the camp resembled a town of 8,000 with schools, churches, shops, and social infrastructure built entirely by migrants. And it became a living testament to human resilience. So despite being unsanctioned and impermanent, in many ways, it was like a paradox, a temporary camp that felt permanent in spirit. But life in the jungle was dangerous and unstable and unsustainable as well. And it was built on a landfill. The ground was toxic. Mud, flooding, and pollution were constants, and sanitation was critically inadequate. Showers and clean water were scarce, and the threat of police raids, violence, and the perilous journey across the channel loomed daily. So living here meant surviving, certainly not thriving. Calais is only 21 miles from the UK, the closest point across the English Channel. So the Channel Tunnel and ferry ports make it a prime point for asylum seekers, and many spoke English, had family in the UK, or believed the UK offered better economic prospects. And while France offered asylum pathways, they were complicated, lengthy, and left many people in limbo, pushing them toward the UK despite the risks. In 2016, the French government began evicting portions of the jungle. First, the southern section was demolished. Then, under pressure from political leaders, including President Holland, the entire camp was cleared, and migrants were promised relocation to 450 centers across France. Around 6,400 were moved, but even as bulldozers leveled the jungle, the conditions that had created it remained unaddressed, and for many, the jungle never really ended, it just scattered. So, in the months that followed demolition, smaller encampments reemerged, and hundreds of migrants returned to Calais, and the UK accepted only about 750 unaccompanied minors out of the nearly 2,000 children. So many migrants fled the reception centers, refusing the asylum system, and instead they disappeared into forests, cities, and other corners of France. And the jungle was gone, but its people were not. Today, the migrant presence in Calais continues, and there's over 1,000 individuals living in hidden camps scattered in forests and industrial zones. And French police conduct routine evictions, confiscating tents, blankets, and belongings. Humanitarian aid is increasingly restricted, and the situation is less visible, but it's equally dire. In the winter, suffering deepens, and this is the new jungle, fragmented, invisible, and enduring. So the Calais jungle's legacy is global. Though the camp was dismantled, its story mirrors migration challenges far beyond Europe. This is my commentary, right? So we're seeing striking parallels at the U.S. Mexico border, We've got migrants living in tent encampments in Tijuana, Matamoros, Reynosa, um, often stuck in legal limbo, waiting for asylum claims to be heard, and many face danger, illness, and uncertainty, just like those in Calais. Like Calais, the US border is a site of contradictory forces, so humanitarian crisis met with militarized responses. And migrants from Central America, Haiti, Venezuela, and beyond are drawn north by violence at home and the hope of safety, but what they often find is bureaucratic backlog. So, Title 42 expulsions, child separations, shifting policy landscapes. I think the jungle reminds us that dismantling camps does not end migration, it only pushes it into the shadows. And in both Calais and the US, the deeper issues, conflict, climate, corruption, and inequality go unaddressed. So the people persist, and so must our efforts to build coordinated, humane responses. My commentary again. So I think we're left with essential questions. What are the consequences of using deterrence as policy? What does it mean to be a sanctuary nation or continent? How do we as counselors and citizens support the emotional, legal, and human needs of those caught in these cycles of displacement? So the jungle may be gone, but its lessons are everywhere in El Paso and Eagle Pass and San Diego. It's just up to us to pay attention.